Okay, in the first 3 videos, we talked about how to make the chain, how to make a single crochet in the chain, and then how to work up in the stitches, still working a single crochet. We're working in a spiral. So this is coming around on the second row after we just did this first row, and here's where we started the second row, and now we're coming around and we're gonna finish. If you're making a cowl or maybe a headband with this technique where you're working in a spiral, here's where that beginning turn was, where we kind of went over and skipped all of that, your slip knot from the beginning. You'll want to finish off with some slip stitches just to even out what you've got here, because if you just stopped, you'd kind of be at the end of a stair step almost. And so you can kind of see, here's the tail, here's where everything started. To come around, we'll just need one more single crochet, and then we'll be back to where we started. If your cowl is really big, maybe it's all the way up to here, you can still kind of eyeball and see, here's where I started, there's where that tail is sticking out. So we'll talk about finishing up and how to cut your yarn and end your stitch when you're finished. So let's do a single crochet in this last stitch. And then we're going to do a couple of slip stitches. So you just go into the stitch like you normally do for a single crochet, yarn over just like a single crochet, and pull this up just like a single crochet. But here, instead of yarning over and pulling through, we just have these 2 loops on the hook, and we're just going to pull that one through. So it's all the steps of a single crochet for a slip stitch, but you stop here and you just pull that through. Sometimes you can think of it as, once you're here, you're going to pull through everything, the stitch and the loop. You can kind of see what that looks like. And so that makes it just kind of even out. And then when you're done and you're ready to finish off, that's what it's called in a pattern if you ever see that, you'll cut your yarn. You'll just need a little bit to weave in. And I've got just the end here. I'm just going to pull everything through. You just pull up on this loop and keep pulling till it pops out. I've got some extra, like I said. And then what I like to do is push this just straight through that stitch. So you did your last slip stitch right here. You can see that space right there where this is the stitch that we worked in, those 2 loops. So I just push this through that hole. And again, sorry, mine's a little long, to kind of even it out. And then sometimes I even just go up and down the next couple, just because it will kind of hide it a little better and make it a little more even on that spiral. And then you can kind of even it out. So now instead of a stair step, you've got it straight on here. Of course, it looks a little different here than here. If you work in a spiral, basically the end of your work is just a little uneven. If you work in even rounds and you're connecting them every time, you'll have a seam or a little vein going up on your work. I always prefer just to have a little different end and then have the rest of it look completely the same. I really like that. But some people prefer to do a seam. For my beginners, I don't, because it's a lot of concentration. I just feel like when you learn the single crochet, you're learning so many skills that are really important. It's not just making the stitch, like I've said before, it's stitch placement. Not skipping a stitch, not working too many in one stitch, you're just working them exactly as you should. So now you've got these tails to deal with, and we flip this over to the wrong side. So this is the side that shouldn't be showing when we're done. This is what we want to show. So we've got these tails to weave in. Some people like to grab a yarn needle, but on these big, huge yarn and hook, it's kind of tricky to get this into any sort of needle. So what you're basically doing is looking for these loops on the back just to pull these tails through. And some people have really refined finishing techniques. With big bulky yarn, there's not a lot you can do. And I think it's great for beginners too. You're just kind of getting the idea that you're just securing this to the back because you don't want it to pop out onto the front. And you just want to make it look nice on this side, and you want to hide this tail. And so on this single ply yarn or any yarn, I actually split it in half. If it's really twisted, you have to twist it the other way to untwist the twist in it so you can pull it apart, otherwise it doesn't. And then I just take one of those ends and I sneak it under one loop like that. So now I have a place to tie it. And then you're going to tie once kind of loosely, another time really secure, and you could even do it one more time. And then I would just snip those ends and you kind of can rub them in there and get them to hide, and you won't be able to see them on this side of your work. And then where we ended, sorry, I've got this all attached here. So right over here, you would do the same thing. So you would only need like, I don't know, a couple of inches, and it depends how big your work is. I just am doing this as a sample. So you do the same thing. You'd find little loops, split the yarn in half, and then tie it. And then your work will be all done and you can wear it.